topic is law on labor and employment. Kind of employment in the Philippines. There are five different kinds of employment in the Philippines, and they are determined by the nature or the existence of the activities that employee is required to perform. First, regular or permanent employment. Regular or permanent employment is when the employee perform activities that are usually necessary or desirable in the usual business or trade of the employer. They enjoy the benefits of security of tenure provided by the Philippines Constitution and cannot be determined the causes other than these provided by law and only after due process is given them. Under the Article 281 of the Labor Code of the Philippines, the maximum length of the probationary employment shall be 6 months, and counted from the date an employee started working. When the employment is not terminated after the 6 months, it shall be considered regular employment. Thermal or fixed employment. Thermal or fixed term employment is when the employees render service of a definite period of time. An employment contract must be terminated after such a period expires. Fixed term employment is highly regulated and it's subject to the following criteria. Be voluntarily and knowingly agree upon the parties without any force, duress or improper pressure being brought to bear upon the employee, and absent any vice or consent, or it satisfactorily appears that the employer and the employee deal with each other or more or less equal term, which no dominance exercised by the former over the latter. Third, project employment. Project employment is defined when the employee is hired for the specific project or undertaking. The employment duration is specific by scope on work and or length of the project. Fourth, the seasonal employment. Seasonal employment is when the work to be performed is only for a certain time or season in the year, and the employment is only for the duration. Um, a common practice of some employees is to hire regular season employees who are called to work during peak season. Christmas season are the temporary suspended during off-season. And lastly, casual employment. There is casual employment when the employee perform work that is usually necessary or primarily related to the employer's business trade. The definite period of employment should be made known to the employee at the time they started rendering service.
So I am going to report the next two topics, which is termination of employment both by employers and employee, salarieless leaves, and benefits. Termination of employment both by employers and employee. There are two types: termination by employer and voluntary resignation. Employers can dismiss an employee based on just and authorized causes. Just causes are based on acts attributable to an employee's own wrongful action or negligence, while authorized causes refers to the lawful grounds of termination which do not arise from fault or negligence of the employee. Voluntary resignation is defined as a voluntary act of committed by employees who knowingly dissociate themselves from their employment for personal reasons. Termination by employer. According to the Article 282 of the Labor Code, an employer can terminate an employee for just causes, which could be any of the following: serious misconduct or willful disobedience by the employee of the lawful orders of his employer or representative in connection with his work; gross and habitual neglect by the employee of his duties; fraud or willful breach by the employee of the trust reposed in him by his employer or duly authorized representatives; commission of a crime or offense by the employee against a person, immediate member of his family, or his duly authorized representative, and other similar causes. Employer can also terminate an employee based on authorized causes like business and health reason. According to the Article 283 of the Labor Code, employee can be terminated due to the business reasons such as installation of labor-saving devices, redundancy, retrenchment, reduction of costs to prevent losses, or the losing or cessation of operation. And according to the Article 284 Labor Code, for termination of employment based on health reasons, employers are allowed to terminate employees found suffering from any disease and whose continued employment is prohibited by law or is prejudicial to his health as well as to the health of his co-workers. So now we will proceed to another type of termination: voluntary resignation. According to the Act 285 of the Labor Code, recognizes two kinds of termination an employee can initiate: without just cause and with just cause. If the resignation is without just cause, the employee must give 1 month advance written notice of resignation, commonly referred to as a resignation letter, to the employer to enable them to look for a replacement and prevent work disruption. If the employee fails to provide a resignation letter, he or she runs the risk of incurring liability for damages. And also, according to the 285 Labor Code, indicates the just causes for resignation as follows: serious insult to the honor and person of the employee, inhuman and unbearable treatment accorded the employee by the employer or his representative, crime committed against the person of the employee or any immediate members of the employee's family, and other similar causes. List two cases where employees who resign voluntarily. When payment of separation pay is provided in the employment contract or collective bargaining agreement (CBA) for companies with existing bargaining agent or labor union, and when it is unauthorized by established company practice or policy. Due process and termination of employment. Due process in the context of employment termination is the right of an employee to be notified of the reason for his or her dismissal, and in case of just causes, to be provided the opportunity to defend himself or herself. If due process is not accorded to the employee before termination of the employment, or the termination itself is declared illegal, the employee is entitled to receive reinstatement and full back wages. according to the Article 279 Labor Code. Dismissals based on just causes involve two notice rule. No, I mean three notice rule. A written notice, commonly referred to as a notice to explain, specifying the grounds for termination and giving the employee ample opportunity to explain their side. A hearing or conference to allow the employee to respond to the charges, present evidence, or rebut the evidence presented against them, and a notice of decision indicating the justification for termination as well as the corresponding sanction, if any. Consideration of all evidence. Dismissals based on authorized causes involve the following: submission of a written notice of dismissal to the employee specifying the grounds for dismissal at least 30 days before the date of termination, and a copy of the notice which shall be provided to the regional office of the Department of Labor and Employment where the employer is located. So now we will proceed to another topic, which is salaries, leaves, and benefits. Labor and social legislation. The Labor Code of the Philippines, otherwise known as Presidential Decree Number 442, governs all employer relations, their rights and obligations. Payroll salary, compensation, and benefits in the Philippines as provided under the Labor Code of the Philippines and other relevant laws. Wage and wage-related benefits overview. At least the minimum wage per region and/or sector. Holiday wage and overtime pay for work during holidays or rest days. Overtime pay when working in excess of 8 hours. Service incentive leave, 5 days of vacation per year of service. Parental leaves, maternity, paternity, and solo parent leaves, other leaves, 13-month, and separation pay. Minimum wage. The Wage Rationalization Act, Republic Act Number 6727, sets that minimum wage rates applicable per region, province, and industry sector. Overtime. Minimum wage is based on a work week of 40 hours or 8 hours per day. The daily 60-minute mandatory lunch break is not included in the 8 hours workday and is not compensated. Premium pay. Premium pay is given on non-working days, rest days, special holidays. For example of premium pay is Ninoy Aquino Day, All Saints Day, last day of the year. Holiday pay. The Labor Code requires the payment of an employee's daily basic wage for all non-working regular holidays. For example, New Year's Day, Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, Araw ng Kagitingan, Labor Day, Independence Day, National Heroes Day, Bonifacio Day, Christmas Day, Rizal Day, Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha. Service charges. Employees of employers collecting service charges are entitled to an equal share in the 85% of the total of such charges except managerial employees. Service incentive leave. Every employee who has rendered at least 1 year of service is entitled to a service incentive leave of 5 days with pay. Service incentive leave may be used for sick and vacation leave purposes. Parental leaves. The Labor Code of the Philippines covers three different types of parental leaves: maternity leave, parental leave, paternity leave, and solo parent leave. 13th month pay. Each year, a 13th month pay is given to all rank and file employees. By the law, this benefit must be paid before December 24th and is mandatory. Separation pay. Following the Labor Code of the Philippines, Articles 283 and 284 state that an employee can claim separation pay. Retirement pay. All employees from the private sector may retire from age 60 up to the age 65, at which retirement becomes compulsory and must have served the establishment for at least 5 years. Gross benefits and de minimis benefits. To reward employee performance and to set incentives, it's common for employers to give compensations in cash or in kind to employees. According to the Philippine regulation, these benefits are exempt of taxes under certain conditions. Employee benefits. Employee benefits typically refers to retirement plans, health life insurance, disability insurance, vacation, employee stock ownership plans, etc. Benefits are increasingly expensive for businesses to provide to employees, so the range and option of the benefits are changing rapidly to include, for example, flexible benefits plan. Benefits are forms of value other than payment that are provided to the employee in return for their contribution to the organization, that is for doing their job. That's all. The next reporter will be Arlen May Valencia.
So, I'll be presenting the last topic, which is the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So, before proceeding the main topic, which is the Occupational Health and Safety Act, let me define first what is Occupational Safety and Health Standards, or OHS. So, Occupational Safety and Health Standard, or OHS, refers to a set of rules issued by DOLE which mandates the adoption and use of appropriate practices, means, methods, operations, or processes and working conditions reasonably necessary to ensure safe and healthful employment. So, so this section highlights OSHA standards, directives, instruction for compliance officers, and other related information that may apply to worker exposure to the novel coronavirus SARS-CoV-2 that causes coronavirus disease 2019 COVID-19. So this is an example of example of so this is the Occupational Safety Health Administration recording workplace. So, Occupational Safety Health Administration, or OSHA, requirements apply to preventing occupational exposure to SARS-CoV-2. Among the most relevant are OSHA's Personal Protective Equipment, or PPE, standards in general industry, 29 CFR 1910 Subpart 1, and in construction, 29 CFR 1926 Subpart E, which require that a PPE hazard assessment be conducted to assess workplace hazards, and that PPE such as respiratory protection to be used when necessary. Then, when respirators are necessary to protect workers, employers must implement a comprehensive respiratory protection program in accordance with the Respiratory Protection Standard 29 CFR 1910 134 and the General Duty Clause Section 5 of the Occupational Safety and Health OSH Act of 1970, 29 USC 654, which requires employers to furnish to each worker employment and a place of employment which are free from recognized hazards that are causing or are likely to cause death or serious physical harm. So, let's proceed to the main topic, which is the Occupational Safety and Standard and Health Standards Act. So, the Occupational Safety and Health Standards Act protects the health and safety of the workers. And safety and health should be primary concerns in any workplace. The viability of an economy rests on the productivity of its workers. Productivity entails an environment that nurtures workers and ensures their safety. Poor conditions can result to illness, injury, and death. So the Republic Act number 11058 is an act strengthening compliance with occupational safety and health standards and providing penalties for violation. So in chapter 1, the declaration of policy. The state affirms labor as a primary social and economic force and that a safe and healthy workforce is an integral aspect of nation building. It is the state shall ensure a safe and healthful workplace for all working people by affording them full protection against all hazards in their work environment. Chapter 2, General Provisions. Section 2, Coverage. This rule shall apply to all establishments, projects and sites, and all other places where work is being undertaken in all branches of economic activity, including first, establishments located inside special economic zones and other investment promotion agencies. Example, the Philippine Economic Zone Authority or the PIEZA. Clark Development Corporation, the CDC. Then, utilities engage in air, sea, and land transportation. And lastly, industries such as mining, fishing, construction, agriculture, and maritime. So, this rule shall also cover contractors and subcontractors, including those engaged in the projects of the public sector. Workers of constructors and substructors should follow the OSH policy and program of the establishment where they are assigned. These rules does not apply to the public sector such as national government agencies, government-owned and controlled corporations with original charters, government financial institutions, state universities, and college and local government units which shall be governed by appropriate rules and regulations issued by the Civil Service Commission and other government agencies. So this law is very important to the workers and to the company to prevent loss and damage to lives and properties. So next is chapter 3, duties and rights of the employers, workers, and other persons. So section 4, duties of employers, workers, and other person. Every employer, contractor, or subcontractor, if any, and any person who manages, controls, or supervises the work being undertaken shall furnish the workers a place of employment free from hazardous conditions that are causing or are likely to cause death, illness, or physical harm to the workers. Second, it gives complete job safety instructions or orientations to all the workers, especially to those entering the job for the first time, including those relating to, to familiarization with their work environment. And the third one is to inform the workers of the hazards associated with their work health risk involved to which they are exposed to preventive measures to eliminate to minimize the risk and step to be taken in cases of emergency. So, next is section 5, workers' right to know. The right to safety and health at work shall be guaranteed. All workers shall be appropriately informed by the employer about all types of hazards in the workplace, provided access to training and education on chemical safety, electrical safety, mechanical safety, and ergonomical safety. So next is the section 6, workers' right to refuse unsafe work. So the worker has the right of refusal to work without threat or reprisal from the employer if, as determined by the DOLI, an imminent danger situation exists in the workplace that may result in illness, injury, or death, and corrective actions to eliminate the damage or danger have not been undertaken by the employer. Section 7, workers' right to report accidents. Workers and their representatives shall have the right to report accidents, dangerous occurrences, and hazards to the employer, to the DOLI, and the other concerned government agencies exercising jurisdiction as the competent authority in the specific industry or economic activity. Next is Section 8, Workers' Right to Personal Protective Equipment, PPE. Every employer, contractor, or subcontractor, if any, shall provide his workers free of charge protective equipment for their eyes, face, hand, and feet, and free and lifeline, safety belt or harness, gust or dust, respirators or mask, protective shields whenever necessary by reason of the hazardous work process or environment, chemical, radiological, mechanical, and other irritants or hazards capable of causing injury or impairment in the function of any part of the body through absorption, inhalation, or physical contact. Next is Section 9, which is Safety, Signage, and Devices. All establishments, project sites, and all other places where work being undertaken shall have safety signage and devices to warn the workers and the public of the hazards in the workplace. Next, Section 10, Safety in the Use of Equipment. In relation to the use of equipment, the employer, contractor, or subcontractor, if any, must comply with the DOLI requirements in the different phases of the company or project operation, including the transportation to and from the establishment, project site, or place where work is being undertaken. Section 11. Occupational Safety and Health Information. Workers in all establishment, projects, sites, and all other places where work is being undertaken shall be provided adequate and suitable information by the employer, contractor, or subcontractor, if any, on safety and health hazards and the appropriate measures, including the probable location of workers for the prevention, control, and protection against those hazards. Chapter 4. Covered Workplaces. So in Section 12, Occupational Safety Health or OSH program is covered workplace shall have a safety and health program including the following policies, guidelines, or information. These are the following guidelines. Statement of commitment to comply with OSH requirements. Next is general safety and health, including a drug-free workplace. Human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, and acquired immune deficiency syndrome, or AIDS, tuberculosis, hepatitis prevention control. Then company or project details, composition and duties of all of the Safety and Health Committee, occupational safety and health personnel and facilities, safety and health promotion, training and education, conduct of toolbox meetings, accident, incident, illness, investigation, recording and reporting, provision and use of PPE, provision of safety signage, dust control and management and regulations on activities such as building of temporary structures and lifting and operation of electrical, mechanical, communications system and other equipment. Next is provision of workers' welfare facilities, emergency preparedness and response plan, waste management system, and lastly, prohibited acts and penalties for violation. In Section 15, Occupational Health Personnel and Facilities. Covered workplaces shall have qualified occupational health personnel such as physicians, nurses, certified first aiders, and dentists, duty complemented with the required medical supplies, equipment, and facilities. Next is Section 16, Safety and Health Training. All safety and health personnel shall undergo the mandatory training on basic occupational safety and health for safety officers as prescribed by DOLI. All workers shall undergo the mandatory 8-hour safety and health seminar as required by the DOLI, which shall include a portion on joint employee orientation. And lastly, all personnel engaged in the operation, erection, and dismantling of equipment and in scaffold structures, erections, excavations, blasting operations, demolition, confined spaces, hazardous chemical, welding, and flame cutting shall undergo specialized instruction and training on the said activities. Next is Section 17, Occupational Safety and Health Reports. All employers, constructors, or subcontractors, if any, sub- shall submit safety health reports and notifications prescribed by the DOLI. Next, Section 18, Workers' Competency Certification. In order to professionalize, upgrade, and update the level of competence of workers, the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or the TESDA, or the Professional Regulation Commission, PRC, as the case may be, shall establish national competency standards and prepared guidelines on competence assessment and certification for critical occupations. In the regard, all critical occupations shall undergo the mandatory competence assessment and certification by the TESDA. Section 19, Workers' Welfare Facilities. All establishments, projects, sites, and all other places where work is being undertaken shall have the following welfare facilities in order to ensure humane worker conditions. First is adequate supply of safe drinking water, adequate sanitary and washing facilities, suitable living accommodation for workers as may be applicable, and lastly, separate sanitary, washing, and sleeping facilities for men and women workers as may be applicable. Next, Chapter 6, Enforcement of Occupational Safety and Health Standard. Section 22, Visitorial Power of the Secretary of Labor and Employment. Section 23, Payment of Workers during work stoppage due to imminent danger. Section 24, Delegation of Authority. Section 25, Standard Setting Power of the Secretary of Labor and Employment. Section 26, Employees' Compensation Claim. Sections 27, Incentives to Employers. Section 28, Prohibited Acts. Then in Chapter 7, Miscellaneous Provision. In Section 29, we have the updated DOLI Computerized Labor Law Compliance System. Section 30, Applicability to micro and small enterprises. Section 31, Intergovernmental Coordination and Cooperation. Section 33, Separability Clause. Section 34, Repealing Clause. And lastly, Section 35, Effectivity. This act shall take effect after 15 days after its publication in the official gazette or at least 2 newspapers of general circulation. And this act is approved by Vicente C. Soto, President of the Senate, Pantaleon D. Alvarez, Speaker of the House of Representatives. This act, which a consolidated of House Bill number 64 and Senate Bill number 1317, was passed by the House of Representatives and the Senate on May 22, 2018. Mayra Marie D. Villarica, Secretary of Senate. Cesar Streit Pariha, Secretary General House of Representatives. And President Rodrigo Rua Duterte. And that's all for the occupational safety health occupational safety, health, and that's all for the Occupational Safety and Health Standard Act. Thank you.